Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. His name is Chris Rice. Mr. Chris, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you on this podcast show. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. Firstly, you are an author. You're also a tech entrepreneur. You are into this tech entrepreneur lifestyle, and you're also a veteran. Once a veteran, probably. Can you please, Mr. Chris, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. Chris?
Good question. Look, I always wanted to be in the military, so the moment I could, I left school and spent the 90s in uniform as a soldier. But I've always also been very curious about technology and academia. So over the years after the military, I moved into the tech sector, launched a startup that won a couple of global innovation awards because we had a different way of looking at a problem. So we solved it in a different way and it succeeded, which is great. Also did a couple of degrees over that time in creative writing so that I could write, 5 books. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yes, been an interesting one. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. And you've also written 5 books, according to what I read in your bio. Can you please, Chris, discuss more on those books and if you have more books you're also planning to write in the coming future?
Yes, I left working for News Corporation where I was a product owner, but started becoming a journalist and got really interested in the power of journalism. So I literally quit a really nicely paying job with one of the world's largest publishers, media publishers, and went and did a 2-year master's degree in creative writing so I could learn to write better. And my thesis from that was my first book, Good Reasons to Kill, which was focused on the different types of violence we have in society, like honor killings, gang killings, racial violence, you name it. And it's a collection of stories of people who've gone through a lot of stuff, including soldiers. And then every time I come across an idea that I need to understand, I tend to, like the whole woke debate specifically, I've been thinking about this for 2 years, just watching this intentional obfuscation occurring in media and this polarization and the weaponization of language, and just thought people need to have this explained to them because I'm a pretty smart guy and I still didn't understand 90% of this debate. And if we can help people understand things, we can help change things in the world. So, pretty much when I approach a book or any project, and I'm working on 2 more books at the moment, I've just had 2 come out republished in the last 6 to 8 months. One focused on midlife reinvention called the Factor. And that was something I started writing myself when I was trying to work out now that I'm in my 50s, what do I want to do with my life? And then the book that's just coming out now that I can discuss today is The Woke Paradox, where, as I said, I was confused by the woke debate. People were telling me one thing, my research was telling me something else, and I just thought I need to write about this to understand it. And it turned into what I think is a pretty handy book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very inspiring. So happy for you to have this inspiration to write this book to also impact other people's life. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. And I would like to dive to the point of wokeism. When people, even I myself, you know, hear about wokeism, who would like to know what it's really evolved with. So, how would you, in your own time, define wokeism, and how do you think it has meaning in evolving over time, Mr. Chris?
I think it's really wokeism, and the word woke is so divisive these days. I mean, it came from African American vernacular English, the idea of staying woke, being open to and seeing injustices, racial discrimination, inequality. And then over time, it's just resurfaced, I guess, in the 21st century in civil rights movements like Black Lives Matter, Me Too. And now the language and the term woke is now so broadly used as well too. We use it around gender equality, LGBTQ plus, climate change. It's become very, very heavy as a term that has kind of moved way beyond what it originally meant was just to stay aware. I would say it's devolved to an extent, and that's been something that's been intentionally managed so that confused people will just follow the loudest voice sometimes and not fully understand issues, which I guess we'll get to. But yeah, woke just means keeping your eyes open and your heart and mind open when you see something that just doesn't seem right.
That's very, very inspiring. Thank you so much for that insight, Mr. Chris. And you know, I would also like to dive to the point of social justice without being polarized, and also probably the pros and cons being woke in today's society. What do you think are the pros and cons being, work in today's society, and how do you feel like individuals can also navigate conversation around social justice without being polarized, Mr. Chris?
Yeah, there's two really good questions in there. I mean, there are definitely pros and cons to taking sides in any debate, right? Whether it's over sports or in this case, social justice and social change. But from a pros perspective, why would you want to be woke? I mean, one thing it does straight away is encourage social awareness, right? So it for me as a middle-aged privileged white man, being socially aware means I can see systemic issues, for example, happening because of racism or sexism or economic disparity. So that social awareness I think is a good thing for me and it's good for society because there's stuff that I learned in writing this book that I wasn't aware was a real issue for people from other cultures because of my white privilege. And I'm not going to feel guilty for it, but I'm now very much aware of that. Um, and I think in that awareness, by me putting my attention on what might be marginalized communities that are looking for a non-partisan voice and to be heard and to have the rights they rightly deserve, I think putting attention onto marginalized communities helps them get their time in the limelight to be heard. So I think that's a good thing as well too, because them then being heard leads to policy change and cultural change over time. Um, there's a phrase that was what was once heresy is now commonplace. So usually change is rejected when it comes along, then it's hotly debated, and then it's like it's been there forever, right? So I think being socially aware and understanding that there's other existences out there and challenges that people are facing, naming those communities and actually paying attention to them gets them to the dais where they can start to have themselves heard, have laws changed if need be, have them debated and discussed if nothing else. And I think it's the big thing that comes out of all of that, being aware and knowing that the impact you can have by your time, your money, your attention on a marginalized community can actually help them achieve their goals. And that's not a lot to ask. And what it does do, though, is build up confidence by individuals in I can be accountable, I can be part of this, change that's happening. But then you've got the flip side of being woke, which a lot of the debate is in media is around performative activism, like where brands or celebrities align themselves with a cause because it's really good for them in the media, and they're not really doing anything. There's no real change happening. They're just changing a Facebook status photo and thinking that that's enough. And then you've got the people who are really entrenched out there who follow one line of media. So they'll be either pro or against, being woke culture. And that creates polarization because it's so much simpler for the media to say it's us and them, to break discussions down into two camps, yes or no. You agree with me or you don't. It's really that simple. This woke social change isn't simple. It can't be reduced down to just one or two options. So people find it easier just to actually be polarized. Okay, I believe this amount about this. I don't want to change my mind. This makes me feel secure. And that can be kind of dangerous. And that fosters the cancel culture, where, just people using hairstyles from other communities will get them cancelled because it's about appropriation, where it might just be out of pure interest alone because it looked beautiful. And this over excessive guilt that's floating around in society about the social injustices so many people are still facing. Systemic guilt, I think, is a real problem there. So, what it can do, and this is the worst part, is one of the things about being woke is if you're known as that woke person, you usually end up being the person who's you get a backlash in open conversations and things because you want to fight for the idea of woke, being awake and being aware, but they don't really do anything. They're just one of those people who encourages the whole woke culture without actually understanding the whole debate. And I see a lot of this, and I saw a lot of this when I was researching the book. People who say one of their first terms they'll use on LinkedIn as a profile is woke. And it's like, well, what does that mean to you? And the reason I wrote the book is that means a lot of different things to different people.
That means every single thing when it comes to work, anything work or workism has really changed in the way it has evolved with years. It's not like the way it is during that time. Everything has really changed. The understanding of it is now totally different today. I think that is very, very important. And that is a very, very big insight. Thank you for that insight, Mr. Chris. And I also like to let us to dive to the other side, which is the quantified self improvement. I would like to know, like, what do you feel like are the, quantified field improvements? And what do you feel like they are, what do you think are the most effective self-tracking tools and technology available today regarding to that, Mr. Chris?
Sure. Well, quantified self, I've been part of the quantified self movement, which is basically capturing and tracking data to make life decisions through smartwatches, mood rings, heart rate monitors, blood glucose monitors you can have on your arm, apps that you might self-report in. So the quantified self movement usually started with sports where people started timing their splits when they were running and then training towards a clock. And then during the 90s, when smartwatches came out and fitness and activity trackers came out, there was this explosion in all sports and then straight into mainstream society about devices that could track things like your movement. So I'm wearing a Fitbit at the moment. It tells me how many steps I do each day. And I know that if I do enough steps in a day and I go to bed at a certain time, this thing tells me when I get my best quality sleep. So when you say what are some of the best devices out there, definitely smartwatches because they're looking at heart rate, activity levels, when you're playing on your phone at 2 o'clock in the morning when you should be asleep. And these can really help when you start using the data in the right way, really help you live a healthier life, suggest when you can eat or get up every 1 hour and move for 5 minutes because being sedentary is actually really bad for you over a long period of time. So I think from what are the best apps and technologies for quantified self and tracking yourself to actually optimize your performance. Smartwatches, apps like Calm and Headspace, which talk about mental health and well-being. And I'd say the other ones like MyFitnessPal for a diet and nutrition plan. I mean, those that covers your sleep, your food, your exercise, and that's a really good starting point.
That is very, very important. With the way technology has evolved, it can also help us regarding to our health and the way we could optimize ourselves in necessary things. And there will also be some downside, and also the benefits are there. There will also be some downside when it comes to the quantified area. What do you think are the physiological benefits and potential downside of tracking everything, Mr. Chris?
Yeah, I look at I definitely agree. This is a very simple one. There are definitely benefits, and then
Mhm.
there are also downsides if you get too caught up in this. There's a documentary on Netflix at the moment, a longevity one about a guy who is biohacking himself and has reduced his chronological age by 4 or 5 years, and he's spending $1 million a year on that. And he's trying to trick the body clock. That is the extreme example. But look, the benefits to the average individual of really starting to track your own performance, whether it's sleep, activity, diet, whatever, is the self-awareness of that, of doing that on a regular basis, helps you form a habit. And they say it takes 21 days to form a habit, for example. So if you know that you're going to look at your smartwatch every day and see that you've done 10,000 steps, and you know that correlates to you sleep better, then you're going to have a new habit. I walk, I sleep better, my life is better. And I think that the data you capture from these devices is objective. There's no messing with it. It's pure data and it's all about your performance. So whether it's saying that you jogged 5 kilometers this morning in half an hour, or you jogged it in 40 minutes, it can tell you things like your calorie loads, of just the difference in if you slow down, how much more fat you might burn, and things like that. That objective feedback that you can then read and apply in your life is really useful. And I think that what it does is having data as in a data-led era where they say that data is more valuable now than oil, is that you can actually do meaningful things with it that actually impact all around your life, right? So you're not just I mean, I'm a passionate fan of at the moment tracking with a mood ring, my mood and
Mm,
sensors. And what it's helped me do is all this tracking helps me become much more focused on performance and wanting to track more, to actually learn more, to be a better me. So, and I think that the benefits of actually working with smart devices is that you capture all of this data, you get to use it, you get really encased in this whole idea, you get really excited by it, and it's very hard to pull out. And this is where we come to the cons. So the cons side of this is really interesting because over reliance on data, and as we talk in the industry, data for data's sake, right? And you can have all the data in the world, but if it's not useful to you, it's pointless and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So some of these people, it can lead to obsession and anxiety. Like if they're looking for a data point to move because they can track everything, right? The number of calories you burn in a day, you can change by up to 30% very easily. And for some people, they know that that's what they need to do to burn off weight or to feel more energetic, but they become obsessed. And they're the annoying people who are counting out pieces of lettuce at lunch and things like that. They're doing it for the right reason, but they're so obsessed that it gets in the way of everything else. Um, and I think too much data can really decrease intrinsic motivation as well. So if that data is not looking good for you and it's telling the story going the wrong direction and you're so obsessed with that data, it's actually really going to affect you emotionally and physically and psychologically. So you want your, I guess, your ambition to get out and do more exercise or to study, whatever, just goes down the drain. So yeah, there's definitely benefits and costs to actually focusing on tracking your own data.
That's very, very important. That means there's definitely the benefits and there's also the downside. One can just be in a position whereby the person use that thing every single time and it's not give the effects like I need to do this time, I need to improve this, I need to. So it could cause those dissatisfaction when it, but someone have to know. I think someone just needs to know how to control him or herself so that one can balance the both of them. So it will not get to a point whereby it looks dissatisfactory. I think that is very, very important. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. And I would also like to, lastly, dive to the point of how people can possibly integrate this self-tracking. You've discussed more on the biohacking area, so I would just like to dive to the point of the how people can integrate this self-tracking in their daily routine. I probably think you're actually using those things, so you know how it is, how it has helped you during your daily time. So, how do you think people can also integrate this self-tracking into their daily routine without feeling this sense of burden, Mr. Chris?
I think there's five things. I think the first thing is at least for 30 days, you have to absolutely commit to doing this every day. From there, if you're willing to do that commitment, because you need a certain amount of data to be able to make meaningful insights and take actions out of that. And 30 days, I would argue, is the basics. So if you can say, yes, absolutely, I'm going to commit to 30 days, that's step number one. Step number two, though, that's really important, is choosing your metrics. What are you going to be tracking and why? So if you've heard and read and seen on Oprah or whatever that 10,000 steps a day, getting to sleep before 10 p.m. Equals better quality sleep, equals more energy and whatever. And you want to start tracking when you're falling asleep, how long you're falling asleep, how many steps you had. Well, those are the data points you've decided to focus on. So that's what we're going to look at every day now for the next 30 days. Um, so the good stuff, the good side about this is smartwatches and mood rings and activity trackers. They'll just sit on your arm and do their thing as you're going about your day, and you wear it when you go to bed as well, so you can track the quality of your sleep. So you just need to commit to always having your device on. Um, I think for those 30 days, the first thing you want to notice within the first 2 weeks is when you start playing. So one great example with sleep with some people is I'm a night owl. As I said, it's now 3 a.m. Australia time, and I've been up writing my university thesis for the last hour and a half. And I like the fact that I can, I guess, I'm just trying to think how to explain this, is that all of the data points that I want to capture off my device, I have to be wearing all the time over 30 days. I have to have a metric in mind, and then I have to decide how much I want to move that metric. So if you decide with the sleep thing, I think that's where I got myself a bit lost. Sorry. With sleep, I decided to try going to sleep at a different hour every night at random hours for 2 weeks. And I found my sweet spot was about 1 a.m. in the morning. So as soon as I started tracking that data, that made things really easy so that I would get reminders set on my phone at 11 o'clock to go to bed, to switch off white screens on my laptop at 12. So I had 1 hour that I was falling asleep without any bright flashing lights. And then I noticed from the data from my watch that I was getting my best REM sleep, which is a sleep that's restorative for the brain and the body, at 3 a.m. for half an hour consistently. And then I noticed over the next 2 weeks, my energy levels and attention went through the roof. It was absolutely incredible. So it is interesting that having a really clear vision on what data you want to capture and just looking at that and nothing else, having a really simple goal. Like if I just want to get 1 hour extra sleep by the end of this month, every night of the week, that's 5 or 6 hours extra a week. I'm going to feel better for it. That's a really good, meaningful goal. And I think the last tip I'd say, like after you've committed to at 30 days, you're committed to wearing your device, you know what metrics you're going to track, you know how much you want to track it. I think the biggest thing that people get caught up in is they get too obsessed by the data rather than reflective on the data. Stuff isn't going to change really quickly, but 30 days you will notice a difference over that period of time. But don't get obsessed by it. Like if today you don't do your 10,000 steps, try and pick them up later in the week or don't. See what difference it does make over the course of 5, 10, 20, 30 days, you know? So, I mean, it's really easy to bring the quantified self movement into your house to deliver benefits around nutrition, sleep, cognitive function, weight, things like that. If you just know what you want to do, you have the right device to track it with, you commit to at least 30 days of doing it, and don't get too caught up in it, but just watch as you go because you'll be surprised.
Yes, can we definitely see how technology has really, really helped us with our health and the ways we could definitely use it to help ourselves in several ways. And it's very, very important. We don't need to get too much pressured on this stuff. We just have to leave it. It can't, I think people just feel like they need to have an instant result. Probably, I want to do this within 2 days, and the results doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes a week. Sometimes some people even make a plan of 3 months, and having a specific thing one wants to focus on is very important. This is what I want to focus on. Not that all the data. No, this is what I need to focus on, and that will definitely improve with the way one is looking at how it evolved within the weeks and the months. I want to also sincerely thank you for that important insight. Thank you so much. And lastly, Mr. Chris, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show from our forefathers. There are a lot of things that do exist during our forefathers' time. I know today is great with this technology that's really helping us with our health, giving us the insight and data that we need. But during that time, there are also things that really, happen, great, great things that are missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time, Mr. Chris, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. Chris?
I think it would be Nikola Tesla. Um, so some of Tesla's designs from when he pretty much started making electricity mainstream available and effective, he had designs for technologies then that are still locked down by the federal government in the US because they're not to be released to market till a certain time in our history, which is still 20 or so years away. So it makes you wonder what this man designed. But he seemed like he would be an interesting person to be having dinner with and talking about where the world is, especially today, around things like the woke debate and the role that technology is now so embedded in our lives. I think he'd be fascinated by. So definitely Nicholas Tesla.
Oh, that's very, very beautiful. Oh, that's very, very amazing. Honestly speaking, definitely hope it could definitely come by. It will be a very, very great person. Honestly speaking, that's very, very inspiring. I want to sincerely thank you for the opportunity of speaking on this work, isn't where people have this personal belief and also the quantified, how one can improve his or her health and details one should try his or her best to focus on. I want to thank you for also the time and the opportunity. I know it's definitely is very early there. So I want to thank you for every single thing. And for the audience, thank you so much, Mr. Chris.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, so have a wonderful day, sir. Bye bye.
All right. See you, man. Have a good day.